Okay, guys. I'm going to talk to you about a couple things in this video. Some of them are just notes that you need to know. The other two main things are talking about adding an XY kind of coordinate table and being able to plot the points, as well as how to symbolize points based on an attribute table or an attribute within the table. Um, so I'm just going to walk you through a couple things. The first thing I'm showing right now is you come up to customize in extensions, and you should always kind of check to make sure that all your extensions are loaded. So your XY, your 3D analyst, spatial analyst, things like that. If those boxes aren't checked, then you run into some serious problems. You'll run into a lot of problems later on where you're trying to do something and those extensions aren't turned on, so it won't allow you. It's kind of like a license to use certain tools. So always check the extensions, especially if you're moving to a different computer that you haven't used. Make sure those things are turned on. If you have problems, that's the first place I always look to make sure that everything's good. Next, I'm going to add the editor toolbar, and on the editable toolbar comes on, we can start an editing session. And when you do that, you can edit your attribute table, you can edit points. I can highlight a row here and delete an actual point in this attribute table. I can't do it if I haven't started editing, but if I do, I can start editing. I can also go into the attribute table and modify actual things inside the attribute table. So I've got capital WW here. I'm going to change it to lowercase ww. And it'll actually take if I'm in an editing session. And then I hit editor, stop editing. It'll ask if I want to save my edits, which is always nice. You don't have to say save edits first. And that's basically editing. You're going to do some editing in Lab 6 if you haven't already started it. Here I'm just changing it back to capital WW because I'm the one that did all the edits, save my edits, stop editing, and life is good. Okay, next, imagery. So I'm getting ready to add imagery to this map. In fact, I've already added it. But I can come up here and hit add data. I can go file data, add data, a few ways to get to this screen. And I'm going to add imagery this way. Many of you guys have something going on with your Z drive. And I think it's an IT 105, IT 305, or Cyber 305, whatever the course is now called. And they've mapped the Z drive. I don't care if you want to disconnect the Z drive from your IT 305 and map the Z drive for our class, or if you just want to map a different drive and know that whatever you label it, that's the Z drive that we reference, and that's the geomaps. I've written the address down in the back of the lab on the chalkboard, but where this current lab is pointing you for imagery is the Z drive, and you'll need to map there. So you know, I don't care what imagery you use, the effect that you're going to get is ultimately the same. So whether you use the imagery from online or that we provide to you, it'll all look fine. It just runs a little bit more slowly when you add a base map online, just so you know. So I'm going to add the imagery, or just basically show you how I added the imagery, and the imagery is up. Okay. Now, I normally, when I'm processing and working, I turn the imagery off because my screen will load and move around a lot faster if I don't have that imagery constantly updating. And if you have several different data frames and the imagery is loaded, it's going to run pretty slowly too. So one of the things I noticed when I opened the attribute table last time is that there's 9 points. And that's probably not right. When you think about the fact that we had 4 points and you're supposed to collect those 4 points 2 different ways, there's something going on that's wrong. And what I'm doing right now is just symbolizing the points in different ways so I can kind of see them. And now, if you right-click, what I did was I came over to points, I right-clicked on points, hit properties, and I'm going over to symbology. When you click symbology, there's this portion of the table that you can look at. And right now it's saying all the features, map them and symbolize them as a single symbol. But what we want to do is, using the attribute table of points, we want to identify which ones we're point averaging on versus point averaging off. And so To do that, I go to categories. I come over to the field value over here and I hit the drop down and I look at all the different attribute tables and I select the point average. Then I come down here to add all the values available and I click it and you see all the different values, point averaging on and off, and I say okay. And over here it shows me the symbols associated with each one. We're going to want to change that just by clicking the dots and changing the symbols that way. For each one of them there'll be a different color. We'll know which one's point averaging on and which one's point averaging off. You can do things really basic, just a triangle, a square, just get different colors, have the sizes the same. What I'm showing here is I'm creating a halo, which is going to outline my symbol with white basically. So I'm going to have a red triangle with a white background, a backdrop on it. And that's what it's going to look like. Some other things we can do. Right now I'm just kind of playing around and it'll symbolize now. So you can see on the map a little halo. So now I'm doing the same thing, triangle for averaging on, picking a color that I want. Then I do my advanced, I do mask and halo. So edit symbol is what I click to get the halo. And then you can see, averaging on, averaging off, the points. I turn my imagery off, and then I can zoom in on a specific area. Now I'm zooming in on the tennis courts for a specific reason. It's because the data is specific to this one in particular. And now I don't know what I'm doing right now. I'm just kind of messing around with the size and of the symbol itself right now. But if I open the attribute table and I go to the tennis courts, you'll see in the attribute table there's 3 tennis courts. 2 of them are averaging on, and I need to delete one of those 2. And to do that, I need to enter into an editing session, identify which one I don't want. Then I can highlight it by clicking over here, and the one I want to get rid of, I just hit the delete button, and it's gone. Then I go back to editor, save edits, and all is well. So I know that I've got averaging on 2 of them. I have an averaging off. The one that's redundant, I know I need to get rid of. I just highlight, click delete. Now I'm down to 2 tennis courts, and I'm ready to rock. I'll go back up to editor, save my edits. If I hit stop editing, it'll ask. I say yes, and now my attribute table is correct. If I open the attribute table again, you see 0 to 7, 8 points, only 2 tennis. All right, so that's a way to edit your attribute tables. You're going to see that again in Lab 6, but it's always good to see. Next, what I just did here, probably should rewind it a little bit. I go to File, I go to Data, or Add Data over here, and add XY data. And it's going to ask me to load a table. So I pulled up an Excel table. That Excel table, I just kind of have a name. I put X and Y on it, and I added the coordinates that were given to me in the lab. And here's what it looks like. Notice a couple things here. First, name northing and easting. You could do X and Y. That might be actually easier long term. The name of the actual points and my coordinates. No east, no north, just the numbers. And I need to make sure I know what the coordinate systems are for this as well. We know that this is in UTM coordinates because we told you that. But bottom line is if you have a letter in here, it is not going to work with these numbers. So I know that's what I'm going to want to use. I find the folder that my table's in, and I click on the table, and then I click on it again. And I'm clicking on it twice because the first time it's the table, and it'll open every sheet in that Excel file. So sheet 1 is, I only have 1 sheet. When I double click on sheet 1, it loads, and it asks me for my northing and my easting, or my X and my Y fields, and then for my coordinate system itself. And I just program that information in based on what I know, select my coordinate system, make sure the Y gets put into a northing, and I say plot the points. And they show up. So right now what I've got are all the points shown in my map, but it's just mapping it from a table. So one of the things I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to create a shape file from these points as it is. Right now I'm symbolizing this, which is great. You can do a lot of things symbolizing these. But what I would normally do is go in, open that the table up, highlight them all, and export the data. So I'm going to open the attribute table. I'm going to highlight all the points. Then I'm going to right-click on that, go to Data, Export Data, and I'm going to save this in my directory as points, or as the survey points. And that's creating a shapefile. Now that says C. I'm putting this on my desktop because this is my work computer. And then I'm going to add it as a layer. So now I don't have to redo this each time. I've got survey points in as a shapefile pointing to, the ArcGIS pointing to that shapefile, and I'm off and running. I can actually now remove the Excel table because I've got a shapefile generated from that data. And then I'll re-symbolize those points. All right, so I've got them symbolized as a triangle. Get my white halo going around them, and I can see my survey point and my GPS points. If I zoom in on the imagery here, there's a couple things to note. The first one is this survey point is supposed to be plus or minus a centimeter from this spot right here, this corner of the tennis court. And that's a little ways off. When you add all the survey points, you can load these survey points another way, and that's in the Y drive, EV398, Lab 5. There's a shapefile. You just load them. 6 survey points show up, and it's the 4 corners, and then midpoints on the tennis court. And you will see that they all basically, the imagery basically is shifted. So basically for Lab 4, we could basically geo-reference the imagery to our survey points if we wanted. But that's one of the things to notice about this is your imagery is not perfect. All right. So take our map, save our map, and basically you're off and running at this point in time. Okay. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about this lab. Again, what I've kind of shown is how to symbolize your points by clicking on any given feature class, right-clicking on it, going to Properties and Symbolize, and then going to Categories and looking at the attributes and symbolizing based on attributes. I also showed you how to use XY coordinates. We discussed the fact that your Z drive needs to be mapped correctly and where you can find survey control points as a shapefile already given to you if you don't want to do the XY table. A couple other things I've noticed people having difficulty with in this lab is when they insert a legend. And so when you're working with this stuff and you say insert legend, you get all this data. Well, when the legend shows up, if you right-click on the legend and you say convert to graphics, it basically becomes exactly that, graphics. You can then highlight it, right-click, ungroup it, and now you can deal with text and you're dealing with all sorts of things. And if you guys want a demo of that at some point in time in class, let me know and I'll do that. This is not a cartography class, so if you have a legend with all other values shown, point av or whatever, however you've done that, that's fine. I haven't shown you how to do that yet, but if you want to know how to do that in class, let me know. If there's anything you've seen me kind of messing around with this that wasn't clear, and you guys want a demo in class, we can stop what we're doing and just kind of do demos in class if you want. I know some of y'all are getting frustrated at how to do some of this, and that's okay. We're fighting through it and we're learning the system. So I just ask you to keep plugging away. It's been good seeing a lot of you guys working. If I don't see you tomorrow, I hope you have a safe spring break, and I'll see you when you guys get back. All right, cheers.